Alright, so in lieu of this I don't know, this pandemic, this virus that's going around, and you know, people getting sick and dying and things like that. I'm gonna share a homeopathic remedy that I like, that works for me, and being honest, I have to, I swear by it. It's my go-to before anything else. If this starts to fail me, then of course, then I go to the pharmaceutical stuff. But first off, I usually go to what we call Honegar. And this, when you look online, there's going to be a couple of versions of it. The main version of Honegar is just going to be apple cider and honey. And both of these the food products have medicinal properties in and of themselves, aside from just being a marinade, right? Because food is medicine, right? As they say, right? Honey is a preservative. They know it to be antimicrobial. They know it to be antiviral. Apple cider vinegar has many of the same properties. It also balances the body's pH level. It helps with arthritis and it helps with gut problems as well. So you combine these two together in their raw form, and now you have this potent concoction that, you know, if you raise honeybees, you got plenty of raw honey, which is preferred. And if you know how to ferment apples, then you have apple trees, or you can get a hold of apples, you can make cider on your own, and you have your own kind of medicinal apothecary. And I'm going to provide links and other information below for you to do your own research on just the individual attributes of honey, raw honey specifically, and raw local honey, raw local to your region honey, and apple cider vinegar. And I use both, and they just help. I don't know what to say. You know, before again I go to Walgreens or wherever the heck to get pharmaceuticals. I'm gonna go to basically the home remedies, the homeopathic cures, not cures, I shouldn't say cures, I'm not supposed to say cures, I guess. The homeopathic remedies, I should say. Now, how I was really introduced to this was through the village herbalist, or also known as Heathernique and Flashder, and I'll provide a link below to her website and blog. And she is a clinical herbalist. I'm not a medical professional by any sort of vocation or license or anything like that. I can only speak anecdotally. And I've got plenty of scars and plenty of proof of the power of the plants and homeopathic remedies that have worked for me, and have worked for my daughter as well, and other people that I've actually helped in my study of this over the past, what's going on now, full studies of the past 15 years. 15, 20, you know, it's going on 20 years, about 15 years now. But she introduced the addition of garlic. And we know garlic as a very flavorful herb, flavorful addition to many of a food, but we also know it as a warding off agent, a warding off of evil spirits, a warding off of you know, vampires and whatnot, because not because of its strong scent and smell, but the main thing is that, you know, there has been studies of the active ingredient of allicin to be antimicrobial, antiviral, antibacterial in its raw form, not cooked. So you can't go and just eat a garlic pizza that's been cooked in the oven for 35 minutes and think that it's going to work the same. The allicin has probably been cooked out of it a significantly amount. That's not to say it wouldn't work over time, but the raw stuff is the most potent. So according to Heather, Mixing together the garlic, minced garlic, the apple cider, and the honey creates a very potent mix, kind of an elixir that definitely, in my opinion, in my experiences, works when you are preemptive. When you just get that tickle in your throat or you're feeling that you're going to be sick, you take a tablespoon or two of this, and it kind of washes away or washes over you. Once you are sick, or if you get sick, you can make some up, and it shortens the time that you would be sick. I surmise, I think, but it strengthens you, so while you're still in your fog, you're able somehow to function versus being laid up. So it starts to really boost your immune system and starts to kickstarting you back into gear. So Honeygar is definitely, and I've used it myself plenty of times. I've used it on my daughter when she was younger and she was about to get sick or had a sniffles or whatever the heck. I give her a teaspoon of this. Again, that's something. A teaspoon of this. Again, the garlic might be a little bit strong for little ones, so you kind of might water it down with a little bit of water. Or really mince in the garlic, or maybe even just use raw garlic juice. Or you could just stick with the apple cider and honey, but keep in mind, for antiviral properties, you really want to use the raw garlic. So that's kind of how this is used. What else can I say about this? Yeah, so I guess this apparently was coined back in 1950s by a DC Jarvis in folklore medicines, but before we were mandated to follow particular government entities, been millions of people on the planet. Before pharmaceuticals, how did we get well? How did we keep well? I mean, there's a certain amount of common sense that needs to be employed, I think, in these times nowadays of what people have used and are using around the world to stay healthy and to keep healthy, especially if they become sick. So again, I need you to use your judgment on that. This is just I'm just adding this to the ether of information. It works for me. It's worked for others. It might work for you. Do your own research on that. But I'm going to show you kind of how I put this together. It's real quick and easy. It's not that difficult. But in case you don't know, you know, this is how you make Honegar. All right, to start, what we're going to do is we're going to measure our ingredients of apple cider vinegar. Honey, raw honey would be best. Honey from your region, that's made from the pollen of the flowers in your area are actually really good for you. It helps if you have allergies. It actually, you know, you ingest honey or incorporate honey from your region, natural honey from your region. It helps to create a barrier for hay fever and other allergies because you're ingesting kind of the medicine of the bees that they make from the pollen in your area. So you want to try to get, you know, your co-ops, your natural food markets. If it says, you know, you can look at where it's made on the label, whether it's in your region or not. That's the best honey for you to get from a homeopathic standpoint. And then same with, you know, the natural foods like garlic and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is, for this recipe here, just to quick and dirty, is I've got basically a 6-ounce canning jar here. And we want to do 1 part of the apple cider vinegar, 1 part of the honey, and then we're going to do a half a clove of the garlic. We can do a whole clove of the garlic if we want to, because the garlic is the actual active ingredient. That's what we're really after for our antiviral and antimicrobial properties. So, but for this one, I'm just going to do half, okay? So, let's see here. Alright, so we've measured out 4 ounces of our apple cider vinegar here. I'm just putting this aside. And I want to demonstrate how we're going to measure out the honey, because honey can be very sticky. And what we need to do is we're going to wipe our measuring cup clean, and we're going to coat it with a little thin layer of oil, or you can use a kind of like one of them Pam or Spam spray things, so that the honey doesn't stick to the sides of your cup here. And that's what causes problems when you're trying to measure honey or sticky molasses, sticky liquids like that. So, all right, so we're gonna want 4 ounces of our honey. Just go ahead and pour that in there. Make sure you're on a level table so that you can get an accurate measurement if you are that inclined. I think that's about right. Yeah, that's about right. Alright, so now we're going to basically mix the two. So I'm going to pour my honey into the our container here. And that's pouring out fairly well, thanks to the oil that we coated. And I could probably use a spatula of some sort to kind of get out the rest of it. Go. That worked out pretty well. Instead of most of it sticking to the glass like normal, like honey tends to have its own sort of mind to itself, of its own rather, mind of its own. We just go ahead and we can pour it right into the jar, and then we're going to go ahead and add this. I'm going to use this to have, because it's got a spout. It's all going together anyway, so. Pour that in there. Alright, so we have our garlic bulb here, and I just really want half of it. And really, these are just small cloves, so you can kind of crack this in half and get at the cloves. So you don't have to actually cut anything. These will break apart. And we want about half. Yeah, that's good enough. We'll put that aside. Get rid of the skins here. We don't want that. Okay, now what you do to get rid of the skins, which is not what we want, you just kind of use your fingers to kind of break them off here. And we're going to go one more step further, but this is just to clean these cloves off, like so, and then we can put the skins elsewhere in the garbage or disposal, because we're not going to need them. So next, to get at the actual garlic itself, what I like to do is I take my cutting tool, my blade, and put it on top and smash it, just like that, and then that opens up the bulb, or the clove, and you can get at the actual meat of the clove. That one slipped away. We'll have to chase after that one, but we'll get that way. There we go. So just like that, it helps break off the skin, and you can more easily peel away the skin from the garlic clove, like so. So I'm going to do these for all these pieces, so without them squirting away. So sharp whack, and then you can take these off, and there you've got your full garlic clove like that. Okay, once we've got the cloves all peeled, we set out to mince. Now you could use a food processor that'll make quick work of it. You could probably even go out and buy already pre-made minced garlic to save yourself some time. I actually really like to use raw garlic. When you use raw garlic, there's something about it. It's really strong. You can feel it. It works right away. That's what I prefer. When you use the pre-made stuff, it's not as potent, in my opinion. But the key is raw garlic, not cooked garlic, right? So basically, to mince, for those of you that are not familiar with culinary stuff, I used to cook for a little bit in my youth, put myself through school. You just keep your hands away from the blade, and you use this as a chop. All right, and you kind of chop in an arc like this. So you kind of just chop back and forth in an arc. Pull things back together and continue to chop in an arc to keep things smaller. Again, if you have a small food processor, again, it's going to make short work of this. Obviously, you don't need to know how to do this. But in case you don't have that, or electricity is out, then at least you know how to use a blade to chop your food. Mince. It's not chopping, it's technically mincing, because that's what we're going for. We want small particles. And part of the motion too is this forward and back rocking motion in a semicircle. The tip is the fulcrum. Put everything back together. Use your fingers, don't cut yourself. And then just mince, 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 mince. Okay, so I think this is good enough. I could keep going. You could mince it as far down as you want it. The key is, as long as the garlic is raw, that's the allicin is what we want. That's what we want. That's the active ingredient. That's antimicrobial, antiviral. Is the allicin in raw garlic. If you cook it, it dissipates it. There's probably traces of it, but it's not as potent. It's not as strong. I know that when I've been on the verge of being sick, or in the middle of being sick with a cold or flu or something like that, I will just eat just raw cloves of garlic. I'll just take it, and it hooks me right up. Like within the next hour or so, I'm feeling a little better, and or the onslaught isn't as strong. So definitely, garlic is the way to go, in my opinion. So we have our mixture of honey and vinegar here, and it's basically the ratio of 1 to 1. All right, so measurements, I'm just gonna use them loosely. Half a clove. Again, the active ingredient is garlic. We could use the whole clove. In my opinion, you can't use too much garlic, but we're using, for this demonstration, just a half clove of or half a bulb of garlic, and I'm gonna pour that in there. Pick that up, and then pour that in there like so. And yeah. And yeah, there we go. Yeah. Garlic's good. Alright, so now we're ready to kind of thoroughly blend our Honegar together. Now, one thing before we cover it up, so that we can kind of shake it up, is that there is, with these mason jars, or these canning type jars, there's metal on metal. There's metal on vinegar going on, and metal and vinegar don't mix. Okay, so you have to provide a burial. There's a corrosive, the vinegar is an acid. It starts to break down the metal or the aluminum, and it can create some gunk that you don't want. Right? So what we do is we take a piece of parchment paper, and we create a barrier before we cover it. And I'm usually use 2, maybe 3 layers of wax paper or parchment paper, like so. And then I can safely cover it and store it this way. Okay. Safely cover it and store it this way. And then again, it's a bit obtrusive, so I can go ahead and just kind of cut this away. So we'll just and then as needed, just replace the parchment paper as you need it, or the wax paper. And that's usually at the grocery store in your aluminum foil aisle, your baggy aisle. Okay. So we've got this, okay, and now we have our Honegar all set together, and we just give it a good shake. And that's going to blend everything together, as you can see. Okay, so this is what we want. And then things are going to settle over time, so when you do need to use it, give it a good shake so that you can spoon it out as you need it. But you know, I swear by this stuff, to be honest with you. Homeopathic remedies. I'm not a clinical herbalist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a nurse practitioner. I'm just a regular dude who has learned a thing or two and has used those things that I've learned, and they tend to work. Tends to work pretty good. The thing is you have to catch it just as you're starting to feel sick. When you get that little tickle in your throat, or that little, just that malaise, the feeling of malaise, you gotta, you know, take a couple of tablespoons of this, and it at least for me, it wipes things out, or at least it makes it so I can function. And then even if I'm in the middle of something and I take this, a couple of tablespoons of this, you know, it allows me to be able to function, you know, and it helps me heal faster. So because of all the properties that are combined in here. So again, lastly, you don't want to forget to label and date your concoctions, so you know what they are and you know how long they've been sitting. Very important. So got my labels here on some masking tape, and just go ahead and label and date it. And then I have my barrier, or, you know, even a piece of cloth probably would work too, you know, just between the vinegar and the metal. That's the key thing you want to keep in mind. So anyways, that's how you make Honegar.